There are, however, allegations complicating the investigation further by claiming that there could be a link between the FBI and Thomas Matthew Crooks. Reports have specified that the latter had been under periodic federal surveillance in the weeks leading up to the attempted assassination. There were, however, adequate gaps in monitoring that let him slip through the cracks on important days. Also fueling suspicion, investigative journalists obtained internal emails from senior FBI officials discussing the potential threat of Crooks. These emails, dated just 2 weeks before the shooting, explicitly mentioned keeping an eye on Crooks, yet nothing substantive was done to mitigate that risk. In addition, financial records showed that
So the FBI knew about Crooks 2 weeks prior, but nothing was, that he was a potential threat, but nothing was really done. Welcome back, Warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. Today, I've got the FBI's link to the shooter. That's right. Before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I kindly ask that you watch the video all the way to the very end. Now, let's get into it.
What if the FBI is directly involved in Trump's shooting? This new evidence points to a greater scandal. The very agency that is supposed to protect us all is apparently involved in an attempt on Trump's life. Dive into this real page-turner of oversight failures, financial intrigues, and high-stake conspiracy theories. Stay tuned as we unravel these explosive details behind one of recent history's most shocking allegations. It's a real-life thriller, sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. Unveiling the shocking evidence. The story of the thwarted assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump took another turn last week after allegations of FBI involvement came out with Thomas Matthew Crooks, the alleged shooter. The details that were to emerge in relation to the chilling attempt on former President Donald Trump's life filled the air with tension. This is not just another headline, but a drama that takes you on turns worthy of a blockbuster thriller. Evidence from shocking proportions linking players from the FBI to layers of oversight failure, conspiracy theories, and financial intrigue had this tale spinning into a tighter grip than fists of citizens across the country. Over the days that followed the assassination attempts, reports and a number of pieces of evidence began to surface, painting a really confusing picture of events leading up to the attack. One of the most stunning revelations reported by the media was that the Secret Service had allegedly refused to enhance Trump's security even after known threats. According to a USA Today report, the Secret Service was alleged to have denied a request by Trump's campaign team for additional security resources, a claim that was further rejected by the Secret Service. 20 minutes before the shooting, the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, had been identified as such by the Secret Service, but the threat was not neutralized. What is revealed, according to an ABC News article, is that the agents had seen Crooks doing all sorts of suspicious behaviors, but for whatever reason, they did not take action, a reason that made it the perfect time for the man to execute the planned mission. On top of that, an explosive claim came out of thin air from some person claiming that the FBI told him not to shoot Crooks. Then Reuters recently debunked it by saying that it was coming from a man with no affiliation with the Secret Service. He worked for Parks Police, and that the FBI made no such order. But with this kind of claim factoring into the world of conspiracy theories, the sky is the limit. He was identified to have established, through a DJI drone, surveillance of the rally location hours before the said assault. This video was said to have been used by Crooks for information about the layout of the event center and the number of security forces, which he subsequently used for strategic planning in his placement, NBC News said. The discovery of financial trails added another dimension to the case. Crooks had 3 offshore encrypted accounts with $1.5 million. CA Club India threw light on the said accounts, indicating he could have funded his radical activities through these, though the source of the money is still under investigation. Crooks had made several calls in the run-up to the attack to an unlisted number in Washington, D.C. CA Club India reported this and, consequently, suspicion regarding connivance and motive. What further complicates this narrative is that on Crooks' phone were pictures of several U.S. government officials, including both Trump and President Joe Biden.
All of this coming to light right now. All of this. And, I really believe that the truth is truly going to come out because there were too many gaffes. There were too many things that were not done correctly. And not only that, this young person, this basically a 20-year-old kid, had 3 overseas bank accounts with more than $1 million. And you saw the house that he lived in with his parents. Why would he have overseas accounts? It was done so that the money could be harder to trace. And so if we look at history, history has shown us that attempted assassinations and assassinations are coming from the top. It's not just some lone wolf. It's not just some lonely, nerdy guy, some person that nobody wanted to talk to during high school. No, it's never that. It's not that. It's other forces behind it. And that person is always the fall guy. They're always taken out.
Breaking the story, ABC News and others found that he searched dates related to political events showing premeditation and obsession with the political figures. In the attack's aftermath, conspiracy theories have thrived. Probably one of the most insidious pointed out in a report by CBS News is the completely unfounded charge that President Biden ordered the shooting. This and other theories have been thoroughly debunked, but give an idea of the atmosphere of mistrust and suspicion that has surrounded the event. This is not the first assassination attempt on Trump. The BBC chronicled a list of attempted assassinations, which perhaps explains why security is extremely tightened around Trump whenever he makes public appearances. The FBI currently has an investigation ongoing, which itself has been under attack and scrutiny. The CBC documented how hard the FBI is working to cull from the evidence what they can about Crooks' motives and connections, but also to answer public and political pressures for openness and accountability. With all the available evidence and outstanding investigations, there are still too many unanswered questions. The public salivates for answers, with a great need to make sense of things. As the probe into Crooks' dealings and links goes deeper, the more tangled skein of factors responsible for the attempted assassination unravels, the clarity remaining elusive. To further complicate matters, Crooks' actions were premeditated. He did not simply scope the place with a drone, but had actually purchased equipment that would be of use for that action. Reports also confirmed that he did have a tactical vest in his car, although it was not clear why he never donned that vest in carrying out his attack. This was either an expectation of him not to survive, or a strategic decision to avoid suspicion until the last moment. Moreover, the financial element created an international dimension of the case. The offshore accounts, encrypted, were traced to Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, and Singapore, a disjoint of evidence that tended to prove careful planning and likely external support in cash kind. All these held huge sums of money in quite important amounts, which might turn out to be the source of the funds for his activities. This raised quite some questions as to his connections and who the people funding him were. The calls that were placed to Washington further added to the intrigue of the matter. These calls, linked to coordination or maybe consultation with unknown entities, were placed in the weeks before the attack. That itself added to the anonymity of the number and the lack of any immediate clear connections itself, leaving investigators with more questions. The photographs of various governmental officials, including Trump and Biden on his cell phone, gave the impression that he was obsessed with high-profile individuals. This was strongly illustrative of this being a very premeditated process in approaching any kind of activity. This was not going to be some kind of random event that spurred up, but instead a very well-orchestrated plan focused on a high-impact target. Though conspiracy theories were proven false, they made up a great share of public perception. It was posited that the order for the assassination attempt came from President Biden, or that it was an operation organized by the deep state. These theories reflected deep-seated mistrust in government institutions and the polarized political climate, even though they were groundless. According to ABC News, the FBI investigation involved extensive forensic analysis and scrubbing of all digital files owned by Crooks. They identified a transmitter on his person that may have functioned to detonate the devices discovered in his vehicle and residence. The devices, though not completely functional, demonstrated some complexity and intention for serious interruption. The Secret Service, responsible for immediate security at the venue, was widely criticized for its response after the attack. Even though they adamantly denied rejecting security reinforcements, the mere fact that Crooks was able to position himself and carry out the attack raised serious questions about its protocols and effectiveness. The core focus of the investigation was always directed toward determining the ambit of Crooks' motives and networks. Every turn, intrigue, and development in the case had the public on the edge of their seats, driven by fear, curiosity, and a need and hope for justice. The attempted assassination of former President Trump by Thomas Matthew Crooks has been a many-legged story of security lapses, financial intrigue, and conspiracy theories. The investigation is peeling back the layers and revealing a rather complex layer of elements that leads up to this most shocking event. The country now awaits some final answers in the hope of a resolution, one that will give them faith in institutions for their safety and security. There are, however, allegations complicating the investigation further by claiming that there could be a link between the FBI and Thomas Matthew Crooks. Reports have specified that the latter had been under periodic federal surveillance in the weeks leading up to the attempted assassination. There were, however, adequate gaps in monitoring that let him slip through the cracks on important days. Also fueling fueling suspicion. Investigative journalists obtained internal emails from senior FBI officials discussing the potential threat of Crooks. These emails, dated just 2 weeks before the shooting, explicitly mentioned keeping an eye on Crooks, yet nothing substantive was done to mitigate that risk. In addition, financial records showed that
So the FBI knew about Crooks 2 weeks prior, but nothing was, that he was a potential threat, but nothing was really done. 2 weeks prior, they knew what he looked like. They knew all of that. You mean, now this is very damning. I don't even know any other way to put this. Okay. They knew. They knew. And you know what I mean when I say this came from the top. You know. Look at history. History is a great teacher. It's always the top that does these things. That lone person thing, that's just a patsy. Okay, we know better than that. And they knew. And let's see what else they have to say about these overseas accounts.
in the months leading up to the shooting, Crooks had received inexplicable payments traceable to accounts linked with federal agencies. This certainly raises pointed questions about the potential involvement of the FBI, if not at least consciousness of Crooks' plans, than was publicly disclosed. The FBI's alleged involvement, detailed timelines, and investigative reports have indicated that there is indeed a complex and perhaps troublesome relationship between Crooks and the FBI during the lead-up to the attack. An oversight project at the Heritage Foundation investigation tracked Crooks' phone to several notable locations, including FBI offices in Washington, D.C. His phone pinged several times at Gallery Place, a building noted for housing FBI offices and as a common site for source meetings and interviews, according to ABC Audio and County Local News. This raises questions about the nature of the visits he made there. Surveillance and internal documents indicate that Crooks might have been under intermittent FBI surveillance. However, the bigger setbacks meant that it was possible for Crooks to slip through the cracks. Surveillance logs and emails revealed concerns about his online activities and visits to extremist forums. There did not appear to have been any concerted effort at intervention or mitigation of the potential threat he posed, despite the red flags. A critical point of speculation is whether Crooks was acting as an informant for the FBI. It cannot finally be excluded that he was led astray or manipulated by the FBI. It gets further complicated with financial records displaying unexplained payments traced back to accounts linked with federal agencies, according to ABC Audio. These payments, which he got in the months leading up to the shooting, have really put a big question mark over the possible involvement of the FBI and whether they had a better understanding of his plans than publicly told. What exactly motivated the potential involvement of the FBI in the case of Crook remains speculative, but very disturbing. One conjecture is that the FBI could have been using Crooks as a source to gather intelligence on extremist activities. Another theory is that there would have had to have been some level of bureaucratic oversight or incompetence in following up with the intelligence that they had. Internal emails and gaps in surveillance suggest negligence to the degree that, if proved intentional, would point to some more sinister manipulation. In the run-up to the attack, photos of various U.S. government officials, including Trump and Biden, were on his phone. He had also searched for dates related to political events, showing a quite premeditated approach. It was pointed out that the FBI's internal email discussed a potential threat posed by Crooks, but did not result in any substantial protective measures. The Oversight Project's findings further detail those accusations, showing tracking of Crooks' phone movements and identifying 9 different phones at his home, with some of these phones pinging at locations such as the FBI offices in D.C., according to ABC Audio. In using this tracking technology, which is capable of identifying and following cell phones using Ad ID, it was shown that Crooks conducted reconnaissance at the rally site days before the event. He said that on the day of the attack, he turned off his phone or shut down all the apps, avoiding tracking. Though all of these points have been brought out, the FBI has dug in its heels, saying it only surveilled the attackers, not being complicit in planning or executing the assault. The agency has opened itself up to criticism over a lack of transparency and perceived gaps in surveillance and intervention measures. Public trust in the FBI has been shaken, many calling for a thorough congressional investigation to uncover the full extent of their involvement. County Local News. At the very least, Thomas Matthew Crooks's relationship with the FBI is a million-dollar question, with speculative theories and unanswered questions. The timeline of interactions, possible financial incentives, and the nature of their surveillance give off hints of a complex dynamic, if not highly manipulative. The public awaits the outcome with bated breath as investigations go on, needing clarity and justice in a case that has paraded serious vulnerabilities in federal oversight and security apparatus. Public and political repercussions. The case of Thomas Matthew Crooks' assassination plot against former President Donald Trump has sparked public and political backlash, unseen so far in the records of American history, birthed by media coverage and the unraveling of shocking new evidence pointing at possible FBI involvement. This plot engages a lot of interest around the nation, showing immense scrutiny, public uproar, and wide-ranging political repercussions.
This is insanity. I will put the link to the full video in the description, but this is outright insanity. This young man had contact with the FBI. The money came from FBI sources or was linked to the FBI as well, if I heard correctly. So they knew about him 2 weeks prior. This was coordinated from the looks of it. I mean, well, how else can you look at it? They knew about him. It wasn't like he was some unknown face that just happened to have shown up. They knew about him. He had contact with them. All those devices, 9 phones, I believe it said, 9, and they were pinging in FBI offices. And now we wonder why we don't trust the government. Yeah, for good reason. And the FBI does not have a great reputation. They've always lacked transparency. And every time I see FBI Director Christopher Wray, I'm like, okay, he's not telling the truth. Director Wray over the FBI, he's not telling the truth. It's always the same thing. Well, this is an ongoing investigation. I don't have that information. I'm not giving you, and Kimberly Cheadle, she was like, I'm not giving you that. They need to put in there that you all need to have all this information right here prior to the hearing. Prior to the oversight hearing, you need to have this list of items intact. Have it. And I know they'll probably still say, well, I still don't want to make sure that I have it correct. And it's still an ongoing investigation. And I still don't have it. These people wiggle their way out of everything. There needs to be a congressional hearing. Congress needs to take this over. Absolutely, Congress. And anybody caught lying, off to jail you go. Off to jail you go. This young man had contact. This kid, contact with the FBI. Over $1 million in overseas accounts. 3 bank accounts overseas. What the heck? And they want us to think that who didn't have anything to do with it. Yeah. Mr. Bullseye. Oh, you didn't have anything to do with it. And speaking of him, where is he? I've seen pictures online that don't even look like him, that supposedly is him. Can anybody tell me in the comments what really happened to Jim Crow Joe? I really would like to know. You all tell me what you think about all this information right here. Do you really feel like this was coordinated with the evil powers that be? I told you guys, history repeats itself. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you all for supporting me. I am over 45,000 subscribers. So my next goal is 50,000. You all be blessed. Love God, your families, these United States of America. And as I always say, march on, warriors.